Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this live stream webinar. This is our fourth in a series of 5, and we are so glad that you can be here. My name is Sidney Clark. I am the Chairman Pro Tem of the City of Olivet. I'd like to introduce some of my council members. Missy Waldman is on board with us. Gregory Carl is also on board with us, and we're expecting to see Ruth Springer as well, our mayor. Today, we're going to share with you the genius and evolution of the Parks Master Plan and Vision. You, the residents, were very important in the integral part of this process. The journey will take you from 2016 to present day. I know you have a lot of questions, and we'll get to those at the end. Some may even be answered as we go along the way. As you type in questions throughout the presentation via the chat function, which is located at the bottom of the page. For those who are familiar, simply place your cursor over the page and a bar will appear along the bottom. Locate the chat icon and click it. A sidebar will open and you will be able to type your question and submit it. It will sit there waiting until we get to the question and answer section. When we get to the question and answer session, we will go over the instructions on how to type questions and ask them in person, so you don't have to worry if you don't get this all now. We'll get back to it. I know this may be a new experience for some, and it will take some getting used to. So please have patience with us and have patience with yourself as well. We're all in a new world, operating under some unusual circumstances. But one thing that which has remained constant throughout all of this is our parks. They have been a place for us to connect with ourselves and to commune with the world around us. They have brought us comfort when all else around us seems to be chaotic. Most importantly, they have remained open, a refuge for us all. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to our city manager, Barb Superwoman Sundag, and our Parks and Recreation Director, Beverly Tucker Knight.
Well, thank you, Chairman. And I am going to change you back to an attendee as you requested. And Chairman Sidney Clark will be back with us when we get to the question and answer portion. I'm now going to share my screen so that people can see. Beverly and I will be going over a short presentation with you, where we hope we will answer a lot of your questions before the end. And I want to start with the importance of parks in our parks. Olivet we have a lot of parks, and we have different types of parks. The yellow is a regional park, and that's Stacy Park. That's our biggest park. It has a regional draw. Then we have 2 community parks. A community park doesn't have quite the draw as that the regional park has, but it's still, it goes outside of the neighborhood. And those parks are Warson and Irveside. And then we have 2 neighborhood parks, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's a park that draws just from that neighborhood. Now others, there's no restrictions, others can use it, but typically they're identified as a park that people are really just gonna walk to. And then we have some passive park areas, and you see those identified in pink, and those are the bike trail that we have. There's a new trail we're putting up north of the city center here, and so that's what you have. Now, we currently have over 100 acres of parkland, and that's a lot for a city our size. And in those parks, we have total of 4 pavilions, and we have 1 community center as well. That's not always been the case. Prior to 1967, we didn't have any public parkland, and it was in about 1964 in the comprehensive plan that the city decided, the residents decided through that planning that they wanted some dedicated public lands. And within 5 years, we acquired 56 acres of land. We're now over 100 acres of land. We didn't have a community center until 1976, at which time the city purchased the then closed Grandview School. So the history of parks and the community center in Olivet is still relatively new and recent history. But why do residents choose to invest? Why did they choose to invest, and why was public space important back in the 60s? And why does it continue to be important to us? To that, I'm going to ask our resident expert, Beverly Tucker Knight, who is the director of our Parks and Recreation.
Thank you very much, Barb. Thank you very much, Barb. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Beverly Tucker Knight, the Parks and Recreation Director, and I also would like to say hello to everyone that's attending the meeting and to thank the City Council for this opportunity. So there are many benefits to public parks, and we're very fortunate in Olivet to have so many parks for everyone to benefit. And I'm trying to control this. I just want to make sure. There we go. Thank you. So the first benefit, the first benefit people really think of in public park spaces is this opportunity for us to get outside and to have a walk, have a picnic, have some physical activity in the park, or have a sports game, or attend a fitness class, or bird watch, or whatever you do in a public park. The other benefit that comes along with that is an emotional benefit, and that is improve mental health. It can improve behavioral issues, and a lot of that, we hear about going outside to feel better, but a lot of that research is actually very recent, and it's very interesting to learn about how important that outside physical activity is for children as they develop, and for adults as they deal with everyday stressors. And we've sort of seen a little bit of that, recently, with people being able to get out and experience green spaces during the pandemic. The other next big environmental benefit we have is that our parks provide a lot of green space, and in that green space we have a lot of trees. And trees are a very important component to keeping our air quality, in improving our air quality. They also sequester a lot of carbon. And our parks also provide a lot of habitat for animals, habitat for insects, and other important plant communities. So for example, in Stacy Park, we have a reconstructed tall grass prairie. This is a remnant of what used to be the predominant habitat for the St. Louis area. So that's a really important resource for our community and also for our larger region. Parks are also economic drivers. They increase property values. The closer your home is to a park, there is a marked increase in your property values. They also can drive economic development. Businesses want to locate their parks where their employees are going to be able to exercise, have lunch, maybe their children can attend a summer camp. So that's another important economic driver there. And finally, parks create community. The mission of the Olivet Parks and Recreation Department is creating community through people, parks, and programs. Everything we do revolves around these parks. And our parks provide equal access to all of our residents. Everyone is allowed to come in. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what your profession is or what your family background is. You have equal access to our parks. And they provide a sense of community pride. People are able to look at their community. They see the flowers that are installed in our parks with all of it in bloom, our beautiful mature trees, and it really gives you a nice sense of place and a nice sense of community pride. So those are some of our benefits. And as we go along, I apologize again. I'm trying to advance the slide. Whenever it's down. Yeah, it's not. I apologize, I can't. Can you do it? Oh, there we go. Great. Okay. Whoops. And it just went too far. Let's go right back. I apologize. Can you go back to the? I'm looking to the city manager to assist me here with my slides. Can you go back one more? Maybe we can. One more. There we go. Terrific. Okay, so how did we get where we are today? Well, the groundwork really started in 2015 when the Parks and Recreation Commission launched a kind of a benchmark survey to ask residents what do you like about our park system? And we learned a lot. We learned that people really like our parks. We learned that people had difficulty finding where they are. But we also learned that the things that people loved in our parks were really starting to show signs of age, signs of wear. Our walking paths that people love so much really need resurfacing. Our playgrounds are beloved, but they are starting to come into the phase of needing replacement. So to really figure out what was going on, the Parks and Recreation Commission launched a assessment. They inventoried everything we have in our parks. If you could go one slide, 2 slides more. So in 2016, the Parks and Recreation Commission launched an inventory of everything we had in the parks. They went and visited all of our amenities. They put them in a catalog. They rated them and figured out where they are, what condition are they in, and what needs to be done. In the process of that, what they really grappled with was there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And how do you prioritize that? How do you rank it? The city has 5 parks, as you've heard, with lots of different amenities and assets. And there really hasn't been, a detailed plan, holistic plan of how to address all of those. So what the Parks and Recreation Commission recommended to the City Council is that a master plan be developed for all of the parks in order to figure out in which order do we renovate them, and how do we go about that to develop, a roadmap of how to make that happen. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, and that was launched in 2017. Next slide. So in developing the park master plan, the Parks and Recreation Commission worked with the Lawrence Group, as well as members of the staff, the Planning Commission, and members of the public. The first phase of this was to develop what are the core principles, what are the guiding principles that would be used in developing this master plan for the parks. And through that, the main ones that were agreed upon were connectivity, connecting all of our parks, innovation, making sure that what we're doing is innovative now and for the future, to develop partnerships. We know we can't do it all on our own, and to have sustainability, both sustainability for the environment and sustainability in the long term for the care and maintenance of our parks, and to be financially responsible. We know that when you start to go out and see what are best practices, what are other communities doing, you see beautiful, expensive things, but you have to we really wanted to be very careful that what we recommended, as well as being good fits for all of it, but they were good fits financially, that we're going to put something in, let's make sure that we can maintain it and make sure that it makes sense for a community of our size. So the process was launched. Next slide. And the first thing we did was fact collection. So through this, the Parks and Recreation Commission, they took that detailed inventory report and they gave it to our contract firm, the Lawrence Group. We conducted a resident survey that was both online and in person. We went out into the parks and interviewed people as they were in the parks using them. We held numerous small focus groups. The Parks and Recreation Commission was very involved in this process. The Planning Commission weighed in and gave recommendations, as well as City Council and city employees. Made sure that the people that work in the parks, the park staff and the recreation staff that program in the parks, made sure that we asked their opinions as well. Next slide. One of the first things that we did was have big public meetings. And a lot of you may recognize this postcard. This postcard went out to everyone in Olivet. And we learned that ice cream socials and providing food are great drivers for people to come in. And we had wonderful participation. We asked people in person, what do you really like? Look at these parks. What's in here? What do you think should be in here? And really captured a lot of detailed comments from everyone. Those came back to the Lawrence Group. They came back with everyone's comments, with the inventory, and then synthesized that with some recommendations, and then brought that back again, next slide, to another public meeting to ask people, did we hear you? Is this what you said? So that people could come back and vet that and provide more information. And here's another postcard you may remember. We need some more input. We served s'mores. We had people come back and give, again, detailed comments and feedback on what we were hearing. So following that, the plan came back to the Parks and Recreation Commission. They had a series of meetings where they talked about the recommendations and refined it, and then presented the final document to the City Council, who again held a series of public meetings during the City Council meetings to get more opportunities for residents to come back and speak on the plan, and it was adopted in June 2018. And so what is in this plan? So you notice this is the cover of the plan here. It no longer just says Parks Master Plan, it now says Parks Master and Vision Plan, because this is the plan that was adopted is a 10-year plan. We know we can't do it all at once. It needs to be a progressive plan over a space of time. So one of the first initial key findings is that we needed to make sure that whatever was done in the park, that we were providing strategies to keep our maintenance costs at a livable rate. What some people may notice is we have a lot of parkland. Right now, we care for 120 acres of parks and open space. One of our most expensive things that we do is we mow. We mow a lot of lawn. And the city has a lot of lawn in these parks in areas that probably never should have been lawn. We try and grow grass in areas with standing water. So really taking that into consideration and expanding our native plantings. Native plantings not only benefit our maintenance costs, but they also make a more inviting park. They benefit our animals and plants and birds and our pollinators. And it helps our maintenance costs as well as enhance the parks and make them more enjoyable for everyone. Another key finding was to remove invasive species. People told us time and time again how much they love our mature trees. The playground at Stacy has incredible oaks that provide wonderful shade for that playground. We have standing, beautiful woods in most of our parks. There are large mature trees. However, the understory of most of those trees is now bush honeysuckle. And the issue we have with bush honeysuckle is that it shades out other plants, it shades out the seedlings of those trees. So if we do not remove the bush honeysuckle and the other invasive plants, we will not be able to have those trees in the future. The young trees that need to be growing up under the oaks are not able to thrive. So removing those invasive species is really important. It also provides more interaction in our parks as well. We needed to develop a uniform wayfinding system. I mentioned that when we did our initial benchmark survey, and again in doing the park master plan, we heard again from people don't visit all 5 parks in Olivet because they don't know where they are. There was also a lot of confusion over, oh, I thought that was someone else's park. They didn't realize it was Olivet's park. We don't have a uniform signage system, and then once you get into the park, you don't always know where you are, where you're going. A lot of people didn't know that the Stacy Tallgrass Prairie was there. They thought it was an area we didn't mow. So having some interpretive signs so that people can really start to understand what they're seeing and really connect with these beautiful habitats that we have. The plan also points out that we need to figure out what we're doing with the community center. It wasn't an initial part, it wasn't included in this plan. This was a parks plan. And as we look at Worson Park and the future uses of Worson Park and making sure we put park amenities in there, you can't do that without figuring out, is this community center going to stay here, or is it better suited to go in another place? So the plan really recommended that we address that. We also know that people really want interactive water elements in our parks. They want areas where children can put their hands in the water, whether it's a little stream, whether it's a little splash pad or something of that sort. And they also know that dog parks are very, very popular. People want more areas for their dogs to be in the park, whether it's a structured dog park or if it's a more open area where they can be off leash or can have a better walking solution. So those are the main findings of the park master plan. So moving on from that.
Okay, great, thank you, Beverly. So the council then received the park apologize, I muted myself. The council got the park master plan. They had this 10-year vision plan, and they said, so now what do we do? What do we do with this? Well, we knew we needed some professional assistance, so we hired Navigate Building Solutions. You might remember Navigate, or might have heard the name Navigate. They were the project manager on the city center, but they don't just do buildings. They also did O'Day Park in O'Fallon. So the council hired Navigate Building Solutions to come and be the project manager on this project, to say, so what do we do? What do we do? In what order do we do it? Well, Navigate said to us, the first thing you need to do is you need to address that question of the community center, because that's going to dictate what happens in Morrison Park. So the council then hired Ballard King and Associates. Ballard King and Associates is a firm that deals specifically with recreation and sports. They do community centers, they do other big recreation centers, those types of things. And we asked them to do a feasibility study for us. The study was going to have a number of components: market analysis, participation and trends. We wanted that public engagement, just the way we had the public engagement in the Parks Master Plan. We wanted to make sure that we were looking at alternative service providers so that we weren't duplicating. And then we were going to need what are the programs that that people want to see in this community center. And just as importantly is what we needed: an operational analysis. We needed to know what's going to cost. So they started with the market and participation. They collected a lot of data, analyzed the market. They looked both at the market being just Olivet. They looked at the market being a little bit bigger. They looked at the market being kind of Ladue School District. And so they looked at, all the demographics of these different markets, because depending on what you have, some people may drive to it. Some people may, it may be within their distance. They then did a review and analysis of participation trends, and they weren't looking just at participation trends here. They were looking on at national studies that were saying these are the activities that are trending, both in recreation, in facilities, and in non-sport activities, because again, it was a community center. So they took that data. They then went out to the public. They did the public engagement again. We sent out postcards with a date, asked people to come, continued to serve people ice cream. And so we did the public, we did a public gathering. We did smaller focus groups. We did online surveys, in-person surveys. And we really tried to reach out and find not just the people who are currently using our center, but people who aren't using the center. They then came back with some recommendations based on that statistical analysis and public input on what programs they thought would do well here, both in terms of right now and as we move forward, so that we built a center that was going to be able to work for us today and work for us in the future. And then, as I said before, it was really that operations analysis that was really important. And we wanted them to make sure that they were looking at estimated revenues and expenditures, that we were going to be able to set up a fee schedule that was going to be a reasonable cost recovery, both now and for future operations. Just like the current community center, some of our programming is free and some of the programming we pay for, or people pay for to attend. And that's true really in all centers. Programming that is really specific, just certain people, like we have yoga teacher training that has a higher fee for people to participate in, whereas other things that are more, our parties in the park and the Halloween events that we have within that community center, those we try to do those for free. They did a very good analysis of this, and if people are interested in the numbers behind this, it's in the Ballard King report, which is available online on the city's website under the Prop C information. They then came back with their key findings. And they said, you need to provide a multi-generational facility That made sense because we had just been looking at our census data, and we knew our fastest growing age cohorts were both on the, the under 16 or under 18 and over 60. So that made sense. They suggested that we relocate the community center off of Grandview and keep it in Warson Park, but move it closer to Warson Road and let that Warson Road be the access. That helps reduce that impact on the neighborhood. They told us that a pool was too costly. Again, maybe you could afford to build it, but it would be very difficult to continue to afford to operate it. And they've identified for us the best cost recovery items, which were a gymnasium, a full-size gymnasium, multi-purpose rooms, classrooms, and weight and cardio. And with that, then they brought it back to the council. And Beverly, if you want to tell us what was the next step.
So many moving parts. Unmute. Be sure you can you can advance your slides. So once we had this report, we wanted to figure out how do we strategize what we have and what are the best ways to do this. So we had Navigate Solutions, and then we brought on board KAI, a local engineering and design firm, and DTLS, a local landscaping firm. And we took a look at these park plans. So I'm going to try again to see if I can advance the slide. And did I do it? Was that me? Yay! I went too far? No, I did. I went too far. Okay, let's try and bring it back. I apologize, everyone. We really do use technology every day. Really, I promise you. Okay, there must be a delay here.
Well, there's a little delay via the internet.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let's come into these park plans. All right, so each one of our 5 parks has a vision plan that's designed for the park. There is a lot of similarity across these because of those key findings. So I'm going to take you through some of the highlights of each one of the city's 5 parks, but you're going to definitely notice a trend in these. But I want to make sure that you can see them all. And remember, these are conceptual drawings, which means that the final, we haven't designed the final aspects of any of these parks because we didn't want to spend the money in advance. So we have high-level plans, and when we get through those, you'll have a little better understanding. So first up, we have Warson Park. So, whoops.
I got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Barb's going to give me assist on these. So first up, we have Warson Park. So you'll notice in here that there are short-term and long-term goals, and there are vision goals. And what that means is that, again, these the city's master vision plan is a 10-year plan. It's a 10-year comprehensive plan. So what that means is you have short-term, long-term, and vision goals. And as the plan is developed over time, you come back to the public and check in. So some of these vision items are out in future years, and that means that in the course of the plan, we have in the timeline that we'll come back to the public to say, hey, this is what we decided. This is what the public asked for in 2016, 2018. Is that still current? So as we move through the phase, every 5 years, we kind of ask that question again. But for the most part, for Warson Park, what we're looking at here, the recommendation is relocate the community center. The current location of the old school is very close to the neighbors on Grandview Drive. So if something new is built, it really it's an opportunity to take it away from them so it's not right in their backyard. We have the old location of the Saints roller rink that a lot of you may remember. It has an entrance off of Warson Road, which gives us a wonderful Warson address, which makes it much easier for people to find. There are still some utilities there with stormwater, with sewer, and with fire hydrants that really helps us in that site, and it's a level site. So that's pretty great. This retains a lot of the features of the park. It maintains that beautiful wooded area. It removes the invasives, as you'll start to hear from things over and over again. There'll be a water element for the children in the neighborhood closer to the Grandview side. We'll take care of the maintenance shed for the parks crews, which is currently an old house. It would give them an actual warehouse for all the vehicles and the tools and everything that right now, a lot of them are covered with blue tarps. If you ever walk on the trail at Worson Park, you've probably seen that. So those are our highlights. And you'll also notice on here, we have some red arrows, and those are connections. So there are lots of opportunities in Worson Park to really maintain or build new connections and new partnerships. It provides access with the Centennial Greenway coming through here across to 39 North, with the industrial park to the north there. A lot of dogs walk in Worson Park, and a lot of dogs are walked from the shelter. The county shelter comes over and uses Worson Park. So it's really a great community park with a lot going on. So moving on to our next park, thank you. Irveside Park is our next park. Irveside is another community park. This is a larger park. Our pavilion here reflects that. The capacity at this pavilion is for 100 people, as opposed to Villa Park, which is only 50 people. It's located next to a school. It's on Old Bonham, so it has wonderful access. We have the bike path that comes, the bike lane that comes along Old Bonham, and it's a wonderful shaded park. The recommendations here are to connect these trails. One of the big things we heard from people during the master plan is that everyone loves the trails, and everyone would really like the trails to completely loop around each one of the parks. For example, here in Irveside, we have a trail that comes in off of the parking lot, and we have another one that comes in off of Old Bonham, but it's kind of a big L. There isn't an opportunity for people to kind of walk around the entire park and enjoy it. So you'll see that theme through all of our parks is expanding those walking trails and providing more access to people. We also, in Irveside, have an incredible amount of water that flows through this park. It really becomes a problem for us to maintain it because of this water. There's a lot of flooding in the dog park, a lot of other issues with water. So that means we need to do some bioretention basins and rain gardens to capture that stormwater. So what we love about this plan is the innovation, the opportunity that provides us to not just put those in, but to actually incorporate them into the beautiful landscaping of the park and to an interactive play area. So this park will have a nature playground, which is a huge trend across the United States over the last few years, is making sure that children have an opportunity to reconnect with nature, to have natural boulders, natural pieces of wood, hillsides, things where they can really climb, experience that, and it's not just a little plastic slide. You'll see, again, removing invasives and taking care of trees. You'll see our vision is we'd like to eventually renovate this pavilion and renovate the restrooms. But again, those are vision plans, not short and long-term plans. Okay, so let's moving on to our next park, which is another neighborhood park. This is Villa. So neighborhood park, again, is a smaller park. This is a park where it's not a passive park, but it has, you wouldn't put a big baseball game here. You wouldn't put a large 100-person picnic here. But again, you'll start to see that trend, making sure that the walking trails in Villa completely circle around, making sure that there's signage, that there is a water play element here, making sure that there's a pedestrian entrance on the north side of the park that right now is dirt and grass. So it'd be nice if that were paved so that people coming in with wheelchairs or children on little scooters can get up easily into the park. So we'll go down to our next park, which is Indian Meadows Park, which is on the north side of the city. Indian Meadows is a long linear park. It's also a neighborhood park. Oops, there we go. So Indian Meadows Park has many entrances, but it doesn't really have a way for people to find it easily. So a lot of people search for this park. It actually starts on Dealman Road, is one entrance along Napoleon. It stretches all the way through the backside of the homes and actually connects to Worson Park. So many years ago, before honeysuckle overgrew these areas, this was an area that children and adults were able to access and walk through into the park. It goes along the River Des Peres in a beautiful wooded area. So one of the things with the Great Rivers Greenway connection coming through will reopen that connection and allow people to get back and forth the way they used to. So you'll notice the looping trails again, renovating the playground, providing another water element there for children. And before I talked about there are areas where we try and mow grass that is growing in standing waters, and Indian Meadows is actually one of those. The River des Peres actually used to flow through Indian Meadows Park before it was put into the channel. And where the river used to flow in that big, large area, I wish I could point, but I can't point for you to see. But, oh, thanks, Barb. That big area, actually, the river used to flow right through there. So there's a lot of standing water in there during rain events. So trying to mow grass there is very difficult. And there are times when the grass is very tall because we can't get a mower in there. So the plan talks about embracing that and putting in plants, having native flowers in there that like to have their feet wet, and then we wouldn't have to mow it, and it would be an enhancement for people to enjoy the park. Again, you'll see removing invasive plants and making sure we have adequate signage there. In the long term, the vision there, we would be looking at relocating the pavilion. It currently is very close to a home. We'd really like to address that in the future. So that takes us down to our final park, which is Stacy Park. And Stacy Park is our largest park. A majority of this park is actually taken up by the reservoir, which supplies water to the city of St. Louis. But it is still a very large park, even when you take that out. So again, the meandering looping trails. We have trails in Stacy Park. It's our most heavily used trails. But currently, once you walk down into the area that connects to Warson, it's just a straight shot. So we'd really like that to again, make that looping trail that comes back around so that you can do a full loop, and then we'd actually have a full mile instead of just being short of a mile. The pavilion would be renovated. It would actually be relocated closer to the parking lots. For those of you that have picnics there, you know it's very difficult to try and get your barbecue gear, your ice chests, everything into the pavilion. So actually having a service entrance that's really close to the parking lot would be a lot easier for all the users that are coming in. We would be enhancing the prairie, making sure that it's healthy, and making sure that that upper area gets renovated. Again, we would take care of the invasive species in here, and the vision there you'll see eventually having an open lawn dog park, providing additional trails, having an event lawn. But again, those are visions down in the future. The bond measure would address the short and long-term projects with that. All right, and that takes us through all 5 parks. So I believe at this point, I turn it back over to this. Nope, oh, I keep going. Oh, I get to show you some examples. So this is the 5th time we've done this. You would think that we'd have this down. All right. So this is a conceptual design of a nature play area at Irveside Park. So the view of this, we're standing in the pavilion and we're looking out where the playgrounds are. And you'll notice here, this is an artist's rendering of what it could look like. There are natural boulders. There are natural rocks. The slide is actually coming down a hillside. There are play areas for children to climb and jump, and it really gives it a much more natural feel. So this is the proposed nature play area at Irveside Park. The next slide will show you a proposed for a water feature. So you've heard me talk about water features in all of our parks. Here it comes. It's coming. There we go, the anticipation. So
I can just explain for a moment. There's a lag in the internet tonight. We've not had it before, so there must be something really good on TV tonight, and everybody's watching it. So that's why we're having a little bit of a lag with the slide.
Okay, thanks, Barb. I appreciate it. So this is Warson Park. This is a conceptual drawing of Warson Park. This is standing at the eastern edge of Warson Park, looking towards the parking lots that are on the existing Grandview side. And when I talk about water elements in the park, we're not talking about giant water parks. What we're talking about is areas for children to get their hands wet in the nature play area, or here they can actually play in a splash pad. So what's really great about this splash pad is that it's multi-use. So you notice it's situated with some mowed lawn next to it, but we have the enhanced native plantings around it. So you get both the ease of the area for children to play on grass, and then we also have the enhanced native plants. And then the area where they're sitting is concrete with roughed up bits so that they won't slip, but the fountains are able to be turned on and off. So what that allows is when it is wintertime, it can still be used for events and activities, or in spring, or even in summer when the fountains are off, neighborhoods can still have their Olivet night out here. People can still picnic here. So it really gives a multi-use function. It's not just dedicated to a water play area. So you'll find that throughout the master plan, and again through the community center design, really making sure that we have flexibility, that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck to make sure that what we're offering can be used by multiple ages, multiple activities, and through all seasons. So with that, I think now I turn it back over to the city manager.
Great. Thank you, Beverly. I'm going to talk a little bit about the conceptual design for the community center. And this is the entry here, kind of in that middle section. And if I go to the south, this is what would be the fitness or cardio weight room. And then here is a kind of a softer space yoga dance studio, the locker rooms and restrooms. Then we have the full-size gym here, and I've heard people ask, why a full-size gym? And people would be very surprised. It's hard to find gyms in the area. We rent gym space for our youth basketball. So this would be a full-size gym. It would also serve the green lines identify pickleball courts. So it would have 3 pickleball courts, and the red lines identify full-size volleyball courts. So the gym can be used for a variety of events. We also then, if I come up to the right end, this is the multi-purpose room space. You'll see it can be one large room that can seat about 150 people, or it can be divided into 3 smaller rooms. It would have a patio off of this end, and this would be the kitchen. We then have offices, additional break rooms, etc. over here. And then here we have our indoor play area. The dark yellow line is an indoor trail or walking path that people can use to walk around on those days. One of the things I think that we're really excited about here is this indoor play area. And this is a concept of what one of those looks like. And basically, it will have some structures in there, climbing and various slides, various things like that. But they're a great asset for those winter months, those rainy days, like the last month, where kids can still come and they can play and they can burn off some energy. And then I mentioned the kitchen. And what we're looking to do with this kitchen is both, it would work as a catering kitchen for the events that we have in here, but it could also serve as a teaching or a training kitchen. And we're very excited about that. That too, with baking and cooking and things really people are interested in learning. A lot of people didn't grow up learning that. And so we can do different classes. We can do camps, both for young kids or for adults that are focused on cooking. And it can add something that's just really a little bit different for the community. In the center area then is kind of the lounge and the lobby area. again, we'll continue to have that community space. A lot of seniors, a lot of people come in the morning. Beverly, currently, they serve, coffee. We have water. We have the newspaper, magazines to read, and we want to continue to have that. And so again, so these rooms can be used for rental. They could be some of our classroom space. And what we've really tried to do in this design is make the space such that it can be used for a multitude of different activities and uses. What might that look like? Well, in this first rendering, you see the entrance off of Orson Road. The building would sit here. As you can see, it kind of looks a little bit like a little bit of a V with that entrance here. The parking lot here, and then you see the space, the green space over here. We'd still have our shed for the maintenance. And down here, this is in the parking lot looking in. So you're looking, oh, okay. You're looking towards the entrance, which is the entrance here. On the left side would be that cardio fitness room. On the right side would be those rentals, those spaces, multi-purpose room spaces that can be used for a variety of things. So they've designed it conceptually, trying to give it various heights, and they've, tried to give it, a lot of windows and connect to that outdoor space. But again, as Beverly said earlier, these really are still conceptual designs. So now we go to, so that's the kind of the fun part. What do people want? What can we, what would it look like? Those types of things. But now we have to figure out, well, how do we fund it and what does it cost? And so the city council really had to do some prioritizing and evaluating. As you heard Beverly say, they really wanted to prioritize in those parks, those short and long term. We wanted to do things in the smart way. And in the way where we get as much bang for the buck. And if I look at those, these are the total costs for the parks. Again, all of this is available online. The council was really wanted to make sure that every park had had improvements. Okay, so every park is going to have some improvements. It's not the same dollar amount spent on each park because they're not the same types of parks, and so they don't need the same things. I'm sorry. Oh, and the size. They're different sizes. Your villa is a different size than Herbside, so there are going to be some differences in the cost. But the main thing is we asked KAI along with Navigate Building Solutions to give us the total price. What's it going to cost? Not just, we want to know what it's going to cost to the site work. We want the design, the construction, what are the contingencies? Because again, at this point, we haven't designed anything. We have conceptual ideas, but we haven't gone out, we haven't done the soil testing and some of those things. And that was purposeful. We didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves before we came to the residents. You don't want to spend a lot of money up front and then come to the residents. So it's always kind of, tricky trying to make sure you're timing, when do we come? When do we get that input on the cost? And then with the community center budget, again, wanted to make sure everything was inclusive. We wanted all the contracts, all the things that were the special construction is really the signage and the bid doc, or the signage and the permitting, those types of things. We wanted to make sure it was upfit, that there was an upfit for the and fixtures, so that we didn't just end up with an empty community center. It needed to be engineered. It needs to be constructed. And then again, technology is big. One of the things we didn't talk about in the presentation, because again, it can happen in any of those rooms, is video gaming. We're making sure that the access, our IT system is good, that we're going to have purchase certain fixtures and furniture that's going to assist with the online gaming, because that really is something that kids like to do. And one of the things we heard is, those tweens, the teenagers, they need someplace to go to. And so that's how then we came up with the budget for the community center. And we put those together with the park improvements, community center, costs associated, just there's a cost just to get the bond. Again, the professionals that you're asking to do work for you. And that comes to the $16.2 million price tag. So how do we finance this? Well, that $16.2 million will be raised through a property tax assessment. That's going to be equivalent to 14 cents per $100 of assessed value. What does that really calculate to? Well, if you're a homeowner for a house at $250,000, assess it at $250,000, or appraise at $250,000, that translates into $6 a month. Okay, and that's a pretty good deal. And when I saw that $6 more a month, we do currently have a bond on the city center, and so that 14 cents per 100 of assessed value, that would be on top of that. And so, but how are we able to really do this? Because to get $16.2 million of work for an additional, for a person with a home of $250,000, to get that for $6 a month is a pretty good deal. Well, we're at a kind of a special time right now. We have the ability to leverage the existing tax rate that's on this current city center bond. And the action is similar to, it's not exactly like a residential cash out refinance, but it's similar to that in that we are able to utilize that tax rate now, and for the purpose of building and improving our parks in the community center. That combined with these historically low interest rates, we're really at a very unique position to finance these improvements with a limited impact on the tax rate. We did, times are definitely different today than they were in January when the council put this on the ballot. So we have gone back to the professionals that we utilize for our bonds, and we've said, can you run the numbers again? Are we still good with this? With this additional $6 a month? And she said, yes, that actually, when she ran the initial numbers, the interest rates were a little bit higher. And so we feel very comfortable with that $6, or with that 14 cents per $100. And so really what you have is $16.2 million of buying power for approximately an additional $6 per month on a home appraised at $250,000. And we feel that that's it's not, put right out there, it's going to cost additional monies, but because of the timing and the interest rates, we feel that we can do this project and make these improvements with limited impact on the taxpayers. And that would be a 20-year bond. We started this with some key principles, and I'm going to ask Beverly to tell us, how'd we do?
Okay, so going back to the beginning, when we embarked on this comprehensive park master plan, we had 5 core principles that we really wanted to address: connectivity, innovation, partnership, sustainability, and financial responsibility. So how did we do? Let's take a look at that. And Barb, if you could please advance the slide for me, that's okay. So connectivity, we really looked at how do we connect people to their parks? How do people get to the parks using the wayfinding system that would be installed throughout the city, so you can actually figure out how you're getting there. This would include wayfinding along the pathway. A lot of people use the pathway, and when you walk on the pathway, you don't always know where you are. You're crossing a street. Cell phone connection isn't always great in there, so sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to know where you are because the streets aren't labeled. We also want to make it easier for people to get around once you're inside the park. So if you are going to Stacy Park and you're meeting friends and you don't know where the prairie is, or you don't know where the pond is, there'll be signs that'll help you get there. Innovation. We have innovation all through this plan. Innovating through the using the stormwater retention projects as an enhancement in the landscaping. It's providing intelligent design and offering nature play areas. It is providing multi-use activities and amenities throughout the parks. And then inside the community center, providing that indoor play area and the teaching kitchen. These are future trends that are identified nationwide. Other states are really starting to see this, but these would be some of the first ones we'd start to see in the St. Louis region. There are a lot of teaching kitchens. You may have seen one at, not a lot, but you've seen one at Deerberg's or maybe at the Center of Creative Arts in University City, but there aren't any community centers where that can really happen and people can really experience that. We are strengthening our partnerships. So we currently have a partnership with Olivet and Bloom that has been going on for coming into 20 years. And through this park master plan, we have strengthened our partnership with Great Rivers Greenway. They'll be extending the Centennial Trail through Olivet to connect where it currently ends at 170 and Olive. It'll go through Olivet to connect its next leg to get to Creve Coeur and then out to the Katy Trail. We've partnered with 39 North. They are very excited about the opportunities for this for their employees, as well as a lot of their employees actually live in Olivet, and the expanded walking trails are a huge benefit for them. And we're also looking at partnerships with other agencies so that we can have reciprocity agreements for swimming pools. We know people really want a swimming pool. As you've seen, we can't afford to maintain one. It's not a good fit for us financially. However, with our new amenities, our new community center, it gives us that leverage to develop those partnerships that other communities have, where our residents can use swimming pools in other areas at the resident rate or the membership rate. So those are some exciting partnerships that have really developed through this park master plan. Sustainability, we've got it. We've got it both financially, and we have it through our enhanced maintenance of our parks, increasing our native plantings, being able to restore these beautiful habitats, and ensuring that we are looking at our stormwater and bioretention. Everything we do on that sustainability lever really helps the diversity, the biodiversity in our parks, which is so important with pollinators, with plants, and with animals. And then finally, financially, we're really building our foundation. We own these parks. We're responsible for maintaining them. And we know that it's a heavy load to maintain these parks at the level that people want. But we want to ensure that our trees are here in the future. We want to ensure that our walking paths are able to be maintained and make sure we're able to renovate our playgrounds. And then by leveraging our assets, we're really able to take good care of the money that is invested in these parks. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our city manager.
And I have brought back on Chairman Sidney Clark. There are a couple of fundamental things at the end that we wanted just to make sure we kind of wrapped up before we go into the Q&A, and that is that you're seeing improvements in all the parks. All of our parks are important. All of our parks need this TLC. We are looking at a new community center. We've looked at and had studies done on can we utilize, reutilize the existing building. There are a lot of issues with bringing it kind of up to code and making it a building that can kind of function in today's world. Again, we bought it in 1976. It had served as a school, so we can continue to use our community center as we have been using it. But it does restrict what we can offer and what things we can do. So the plan is for the existing community center, the new community center to be built, and then the existing community center to be raised. We will have a coordinated implementation so that we don't know exactly what's going to go first or what's going to happen first, but our intention, we won't know that until we get more into the engineering and also get some contractors on board who are going to tell us what makes the most sense. How do we do things in the most sensical way And so, but we do anticipate there being kind of everything kind of being done in the year. If the bond passes on June 2nd, we anticipate being in the early of 2022. We know this is an investment. We're not shying away from the fact that this is costing additional funds. But we have, just like the promise we made on this building, we would not, we said at the beginning there, it would be, 42 cents per 100 of assessed value. We are sticking with our promise here. All of our debt, both for the current city center as well as for these improvements, would be a total of the 56 cents per 100, and so that's where you get the extra $6. But we are shying away from the fact that we know it does cost additional money. But we do think it's a good time to make these improvements. And again, that goes to, because there is a limited window of opportunity for us to take advantage financially. And with that, then, and that kind of concludes our program. I am, let's see here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And I'm going to take the opportunity to bring in for the question and answer session the council members who are on. Greg, and Mayor Springer has joined us. Council member Missy Waldman, and I believe that's it. And I'm also going to bring on, there tends to be usually a question about finances that I have trouble answering. And so I am going to bring on our finance director, Darren Mann, as well. We have about 5 Q&A, and Mayor, do you, or Chairman Pro Tem, would you like me to start, or would you like to take the questions?
I'll go ahead and ask. The first question came from Jim. And his question was, were other financing options considered besides property tax? An example, sales tax, business donations, other. Are maintenance funds sufficient once everything is constructed / installed?
Okay, that's a great question. We have looked at other things. We're looking at we already have a park and stormwater sales tax that we collect. It's that we utilize for the operations of our parks. We do have a fund reserve in that, and we would anticipate continuing to utilize that funding as we move forward with the new operations. We will be seeking business donations, and we will be looking at grants as well. But until we know that the bond is that we'll have essentially really the money to make it happen, those are a little bit harder to secure without having that public input and public feedback on the main financing, which tends to be property taxes. Maintenance, once this is constructed or installed, that's why we had Navigate on board, Navigate Building Solutions. We do have a representative, Todd Sweeney from Navigate. I'm going to ask Todd. I'm going to bring Todd over. That's what they're looking at, is we're looking at the maintenance. What is this going to cost as we move forward? Because that is, again, that's important, and so that we have been looking at those things as well. Rebecca Rubin has a question. As you mentioned, the park improvement has been a several-year endeavor. The addition of the community center in this bill is kind of out of nowhere. If the bond fails, does it mean the park improvements will not happen, or is there a contingency plan? Well, we always have to have a contingency plan, and the reality is doing as we kind of came to see, doing park improvements without looking at the community center didn't seem to be, didn't seem to make sense at the time. It still doesn't seem, you really have to look at the whole thing. We did look at other ways of, combining the community center and the park improvements on the bond, but the reality was the information we got back from our bond counsel was that really those projects they're really similar. They're really, it would be hard to make them. You can't have two bond questions on that ask the same question. And so you're doing these park improvements, and which is also that community center. And so their recommendation was that we do it as one question. What happens is if this fails, well, we would move, we'd want to know why. I think we'd spend some time trying to figure out what happened. What did people like? What did people not like? And depending on those answers, we'd continue to have some public meetings and some discussion on what we would do next. And so we don't really have well, if this fails, this is our next step. If this fails, we'll continue on as we have, and take into consideration what we need to do next, using the new information that we will have. From Larry, will you be able to use the existing community center until the new community center is ready for occupancy? And then a follow-up, what is the priority order for doing all of these buildings and improvements? Is Worcester and the community center on the list first? Todd Sweeney is the president of Navigate Building Solutions, and they're the project manager on this, and they're really going to help us with that, what order in which we do things. So Todd, do you have any sense now? Again, I know it's early in the process. We don't have our engineering done, but do you have a sense of how we might be able to be doing this? Oh, you're mute.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got you.
No, thank you. This is Todd Sweeney. The work at Worcester Park and the Community Center certainly is a priority, and I think the teams are ramped up and ready to start the design on that immediately should the measure pass. The thought was that would take approximately 8 months to design and bid, so we would be late first quarter, early second quarter of next year before we could get started. So though that is a priority and though that is a desire to move that forward, it certainly just takes longer than it will to design some of the smaller park improvements like what you would see at the various parks. So there's an opportunity to advance some of those smaller projects ahead simply because they're easier to design and it'll be a shorter period required to get them to market.
Thanks, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, we do. Our hope and the plan as it stands now is that we will continue to use the existing community center until the other is operational. Again, that could change. Again, just want to make sure everybody, we're pretty early in this process, but that would be our goal. And Chairman and Mayor, we have a couple of Q&A questions as well.
Chairman, do you want to read them or would you prefer me to read them? I'll start with the first one. In the feasibility study, was it ever considered to move the community center to Stacy Park?
I'll go ahead and take that. One of the issues we have with Stacy Park is we actually don't own it. We rent it and rented it from the city, St. Louis City, for years. Pardon me, for $1 a year, right? $1 a year. And we are able, that contract is very, very favorable in that we are able to construct things in the park and do make investments in that park as long as we don't do anything near the reservoir and certain restrictions like that. We didn't think putting the community center there would be a good idea though, because that's such a big investment. We really believe that we should be owning that property.
All
Yeah,
right.
and it will be nice having the traffic kind of coming off of Worcester as opposed to Obanum.
Does the community center include an indoor basketball court?
Yes, absolutely. The new community center contains a basketball court, and in the theme of our multi-use, it's not only a basketball court, it's also 3 pickleball courts and 2 volleyball courts. And the plan would be that it would be multi-age. So before the pandemic, we actually started drop-in basketball after school for children getting off the bus, students coming in from the 5th grade center and the junior high being able to play basketball after school. Sadly, we had to curtail that during the stay-at-home order. But those types of activities would absolutely continue in the new center. So there would be opportunities for people that are retired or that are home during the day to use the courts during the day for pickleball or for volleyball or for basketball or any other program that we want to offer in there. And then you would see the ages shift throughout the day, because the commitment is that this is a multi-generational facility. So people that are over age 55, people that are in elementary school, or people that are coming in after work, everyone would be able to use it. It wouldn't be just for one straight age group.
Bill, I'm going to jump down to the second part of your question too, because it got a little disjointed. So I have 2 questions with regard to the Villa Park improvements. Are there any plans to acquire the tracts of land north of Villa Park to expand the park? And if I heard right, Villa Park will be connected to Tess Avenue. Will water flow be taken into account because a lot of park drainage aims at this area? Who's taking that?
I'm happy to answer that, Mayor. So the city did acquire 2 small parcels that adjoin Villa Park over by Tess, but there are no current plans to expand that. So the 2 small parcels that were acquired actually formalize the use that's been happening for many years with people walking from Tess into Villa Park. And as I talked about with the park designs, that entrance there is a fairly short, grassy, sometimes muddy stretch that has an incline in it. So if you were pushing a stroller or pushing a wheelchair to get up that hill, it's pretty hard. So the master plan would formalize that entrance, would give it an ADA slope so that it would be much more navigable, but it would not be an intense use over on that end, because again, there's homes there. So we wouldn't put like a picnic table right there or something like that. It would be a very soft entrance there. You're right, there's a lot of water in Villa. All of our parks have a lot of water. So in areas where non-permeable pavement is going in, there will be stormwater mitigation that's done on all of those. So we would want to make sure that the improvements we're doing are not negatively impacting our neighbors. So we would make sure that drainage would happen, and we'd enhance the plantings over there and put in native plants as well. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will the community center offer memberships similar, for example, to what is currently part of the University City opportunities to rent the park and pavilions for residents?
I will talk about the community center memberships. It will be similar to University. I don't know exactly University City, and that we will have memberships available. Again, there's information that the Ballard King did do some analysis of what memberships might look like, and those are in that Ballard King report that are on the city website, olivetmo.com. Under the on Prop C, you'll actually, the report is there if you're interested in really delving into that information. And we will continue to rent the park pavilions as we currently do.
That should answer the question also for Jeff, where he was asking similar to what you just stated about the fees for the park. For the center.
Yes, correct, Chairman.
Anonymous asks, is the maintenance for the park structures, buildings, paving, lots, etc., include the 16.2 million?
No, maintenance is not included in that. And that's why we look at, we calculate what maintenance would be on these things. And then for, the community center and the parks. And we try to make sure that we have operational, those costs will be covered either through user fees or through that, the sales tax or other opportunities that we would have, but that's part of the financial feasibility study. Sure.
Okay, sure. I'd like to add on to that, that long-term maintenance was a driving force in what was planned for each park and for the community center. So when I talked earlier in my presentation about reducing our mowing costs, that is our largest contract that we pay in the Parks Department. So in areas where we're able to convert areas where we're trying to grow lawn, for example, in standing water, to an area that has native plants, that actually helps reduce our overhead. So there's, I encourage, as Barb said about the Ballard King report, I also encourage people to read the Park Master Plan. It is a wonderful document. It has a lot of information in there. And again, I'm available for questions. So if you, as you read through the plan, and several residents have, you are more than welcome to email me questions or call me with questions, and I'd be happy to share information with you.
I believe we have one more, or two more, we have a couple more chat questions.
Okay. Yes, how is COVID changing these plans, if any, at all?
Oh, I see. I wasn't sure where that was. I see. Well, make sure I'm unmuted. Those are things that that you're going to be taking into consideration. That's the new world of the architects and the engineers when you're talking about indoor spacing. Really, when we look at the city center that is gorgeous and new, we find that it was really constructed in a way that's works well for us for COVID. We have separated areas. We have glass areas in which people, if we can't talk face to face, we have a number of different size rooms that people can use for meeting space. And I think that realistically, we probably won't be designing a building for a pandemic per se, but I think that that's going to be part of the new norm. Is what will that look like if we do need to have additional space and those types of things. So yeah, we do take that into consideration. The architects will take that into consideration. How much weight it's given versus some of the other things. Again, it all has to be looked at. Has to all be looked at as one whole picture.
Okay, on our next question. Is it fair to say that this proposition will nearly double the amount of walking trails in our parks?
We have not done the.
Yeah, we haven't measured the actual length of those. Until we actually have working drawings, we won't know the actual. I will say that they'll increase them. When you have a park like Stacy, it probably wouldn't double it, but it would certainly increase it by probably a quarter, if not a third. In parks like Irvside, yes, it would probably double it. And then in Warson Park, if you take the Great Rivers Greenway addition that comes in from the Centennial Trail, then there is a potential that, yes, absolutely would double it. So I'm hesitant to say that the entire park system would be doubled, but for trails, that is, but it would be a significant increase.
And finally, is there any?
No, there's more. We're missing one.
There's a couple. He's
Oh,
getting the
sorry.
final.
I apologize.
I'm sorry. Well, at least the one I see right now is any ETA on reopening the playgrounds, please.
Okay, yeah, we are all anxious to reopen the playgrounds. We waiting for direction from the county. Currently, there is not a way for us to open them and keep them sanitized and to have social distancing on them with the requirements, particularly with groups of more than 10 not being allowed. However, I anticipate that the county will be releasing information over the next couple of weeks that will help us develop a timeline for that.
Ms. Sondag, I think we have one hand raised.
Actually, we have one more question, Mayor, under
Oh,
chat.
yes, that's correct.
And it's the Indian Meadows Park. On the east side, it looks like there will be parking added when the pavilion is added. How much parking is anticipated, and will this be a rentable pavilion? That pavilion and that parking is actually a vision. So that's not included in this, in the project that's before us tonight. Or that is it's a 10-year. That's within the 10 years goal that we would hope. So at this point, I couldn't really tell you what it's too conceptual to say how much parking or the use of the pavilion by any means because it's so many years out. But it's good. It is a good question, and it's a little bit hard because when you're looking at those maps, you're looking at short, long-term, and vision. So it is a little bit hard to always differentiate. And when we have, looks like we have 2 hands that are raised. I will, I'm going to ask Rob. I've unmuted you. I think I have. There you are.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, there we go. All right. Thank you
Yep.
for that unmutation. Thank you. Hi, just it's Rob Hoyerman, Chairman for the Parks Commission, hearing all of that. And I just wanted to thank everybody for putting on this evening's town hall. The commission has looked closely at our proposal. All of the commissioners have been knee deep in this thing and been, headed up the hill of making this vision come to fruition. Want to recognize, Keisha Lee, Jim Person for all the work he's been doing, Ed Kastner, Mary Kay, Sue Rich, etc., for all the work they've been putting into this. We are all very excited for this bond measure to pass. The vision has been well thought out, well designed, and for everyone who's listening here and all of that, we think you'll be really pleased with the end result. So we look forward to your support on this here in June. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you, Rob. And now, Jim Person, I am unmuting you. And at least I'm giving it my best shot.
Yeah.
Yep, you're good now.
Yeah, that is Jim Person. I'm also a member of the commission. I'm a relatively recent one. I'm a new recruit, but as I've looked at what has happened in terms of the development of this project, the work of the council, the work of the mayor pro tem, what Beverly has done, what Barb has done, it's amazing. We have a plan that really seems to work, that I think the citizens will be very happy about. And I look forward to the implementation of it after the successful passing of Proposition C.
Well, thank
Mayor,
you.
Chairman,
Well, thank you.
I don't see any other, oh, one more. Ed. Okay, one more. Ed Kastner. Oh, not just one more. We can.
Hello, Barb.
Yes, you're on.
Hello, council members, Barb, Beverly, Todd. Again, I just want to thank you so much for your presentation tonight. I'm a long-time resident and member of the Parks Commission, and I've, like the other, my other colleagues, I'm just so impressed with the whole process, how transparent it's been, how thorough it is, how thoughtful it is. I really see this proposition, especially in light of what's going on, as an investment in our collective mental health. This is a big time investment in our community, and it's a gift I see to future generations of Olivet residents. That's what I see instead of the 14 cents. The 14 cents is significant and it's important, and we're all thinking about added monies and whatever. But if anyone has been anywhere near a park in the last 2 months, you cannot deny its importance. And adding walking trails and adding the amenities we're talking about, I see as just a really important thing for our community. And I applaud all of you for all of your work on this. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I
don't see any other questions.
yeah, does anyone else have a question? Or you can either raise your hand, chat, or Q&A. Okay.
All right.
All right.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This has been incredibly successful for us in terms of being able to share information with you. And we thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Remember, Tuesday is Election Day, and we encourage you to get out there, vote, be safe, and we will see you all again. Thank you so much. Oh, Monday. Q&A on Monday. I'm sure you said that, right? Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all.
Good night.